Let's get real for a second. You're standing in your kitchen, staring at something you pulled from the back of the pantry, and you genuinely cannot tell if it's going to kill you. That right there is a problem. Not just an inconvenience, an actual serious problem when things go sideways. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. The grocery store is 3 days away from empty shelves when any major disruption hits. 3 days, that's it. After that, you're eating whatever you have on hand, and if that's a bag of chips and some expired salsa, good luck. This isn't about being paranoid. This is about being smart. Every single person reading this eats food every day. So why wouldn't you think seriously about what happens when the food supply gets interrupted? Floods, earthquakes, grid failures, economic collapse, supply chain breakdowns. Pick your disaster. The point is, any of these things can happen, and most people are completely unprepared. The good news? There's a category of food that basically laughs at time. Stored correctly, these items don't just last a long time. They last indefinitely. We're talking decades. Some of them have lasted thousands of years. That's not an exaggeration. We'll get to that. So here's the full breakdown, not just the common ones you've heard about. We're going deep on this list, explaining exactly why each item lasts, how to store it properly, and what mistakes to avoid. Let's get into it. 1. White rice. White rice is the undisputed king of survival food. It's calorie-dense, filling, versatile, and when stored correctly, it simply does not expire. This is one of the first things any serious prepper puts away, and for good reason. Now the key word there is white rice, not brown. Brown rice has natural oils in it from the outer bran layer, and those oils go rancid over time. Brown rice will last maybe 6 months to a year under good conditions. White rice, once that bran layer is milled away, has virtually no fat content. No fat means no rancidity. No rancidity means it just keeps sitting there, perfectly fine, waiting for you to need it. The best way to store it is in airtight containers. Hard plastic bottles, glass jars with sealed lids, or mylar bags all work. The goal is zero moisture and zero oxygen getting in. If you're using old seltzer bottles or any repurposed containers, that's totally fine. Just make sure they're thoroughly cleaned and bone dry before you pour the rice in. Any moisture left in that container will cause problems fast. One thing people bring up constantly is weevils. Rice weevils are tiny insects that can already be present in rice when you buy it. The eggs are sometimes already in the bag. If you seal the rice immediately into an airtight container, they can't get enough oxygen to survive or hatch. Some people also freeze rice for a week before long-term storage to kill any eggs that might be present. Both approaches work. And if you do end up with weevils, it's not ideal, but it's not a catastrophe either. They're just protein. In many parts of the world, people cook with them or pick them out without much concern. In a real survival situation, you'll care a lot less about that than you think right now. Oxygen absorbers inside your sealed containers take this to another level entirely. Drop 1 or 2 in, seal it up, and you're looking at rice that will last 25 to 30 years without any noticeable change in quality. That's not a guess, that's documented. Burnt meat. Canned meat. Protein is everything in a survival scenario. Your body needs it to function, to heal, to maintain muscle, to keep your immune system working. Carbs give you energy, but protein keeps you alive in a meaningful way. And canned meat is one of the most practical sources of long-term protein you can stockpile. Everyone always goes straight to Spam, and yeah, Spam works. But the options go way beyond that. Canned tuna, canned salmon, canned chicken, canned beef, canned sardines, canned mackerel. The variety is actually pretty impressive. Sardines in particular are nutritional powerhouses. High in protein, full of omega-3 fatty acids, calcium, and vitamin D. If you're only thinking about Spam, you're missing out on a lot of better options. The science behind why canned meat lasts so long is straightforward. The canning process involves heating the food to a temperature that kills bacteria, then sealing it in a sterile environment. Once that seal is intact, there's nothing in there to cause spoilage. No air, no bacteria, no moisture exchange with the outside world. The food just sits there in suspended animation. What you need to pay attention to is the physical condition of the can. Dents are generally fine if they're on the side of the can. Dents on the seam, the edge where the lid crimps together, are a different story. That's where the integrity of the seal lives. A compromised seam can allow bacteria in. And we're not just talking about bad taste here. Botulism is a real risk with improperly sealed canned goods, and it's not something you want to mess around with. Bulging cans go straight in the trash. No exceptions. A bulging can means gas is being produced inside. which means something biological is happening in there. Don't open it to check, don't smell it, just throw it out. Stored in a cool, stable environment away from temperature extremes, canned meats will last well beyond their printed best-by dates. Many experts suggest the quality stays good for 5 to 10 years minimum, and safety-wise, properly sealed cans can last much longer than that. 3. White sugar. Sugar is one of the simplest items on this list because the explanation for why it lasts forever is also simple. Bacteria and mold need water to grow. Pure white sugar has essentially no moisture in it. There's nothing for microorganisms to work with, so they don't grow, ever. The thing that can go wrong with sugar isn't spoilage, it's clumping. If moisture gets into your sugar storage, it'll harden into a solid brick. It's annoying, but it doesn't mean the sugar has gone bad. You can break it up, run it through a food processor, or just chisel off what you need. The sugar itself is still perfectly usable. To avoid that problem, keep it in an airtight container in a cool, dry place. That's the whole strategy. You don't need oxygen absorbers, you don't need Mylar bags, you don't need anything fancy. A sealed bucket or a good airtight canister is all it takes. If you want to go bigger, some bulk stores sell sugar in 10-pound metal cans that are already sealed for long-term storage. Those are great if you can find them, but honestly, just buying regular bags and transferring them to sealed containers works just as well and costs less. Sugar also has enormous utility beyond just sweetening things. It's a natural preservative used in jams, jellies, and cured foods. It's a source of quick energy when you're running low. And in certain situations, it can even help with wound care. Sugar has documented antimicrobial properties when applied to wounds. Having a large supply of sugar stored away is genuinely one of the easiest wins in emergency preparedness. Dry beans. Dry beans are nutritional heavyweights. Protein, fiber, complex carbohydrates, iron, folate. The list of what's in them is long. They're cheap, they're filling, and they store for an incredibly long time when handled correctly. The honest answer on shelf life is this. In a basic sealed bag or airtight container, dry beans will stay good for about 3 years. That's the standard answer you'll see on most packaging, and it's conservative. After 3 to 5 years, the beans might get harder and take longer to cook, but they're generally still edible and nutritious. If you want to push past that into actual indefinite storage, the approach is Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Seal the beans in a Mylar bag, toss in an oxygen absorber sized appropriately for the bag volume, heat seal it, and then store that bag in a hard plastic bucket to protect it from punctures and pests. Done correctly, that setup gives you beans that can last 25 or more years without significant quality loss. The variety matters too. Black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, lentils, chickpeas, each one has a slightly different nutritional profile and a different cooking application. Stocking a variety means you have more options when you're cooking with limited ingredients. Lentils are particularly good for preppers because they cook faster and don't require soaking like larger beans do. One thing worth noting, sprouting beans. If you have dry beans and water and a little warmth, you can sprout them and get fresh living nutrition without any cooking at all. In a long-term scenario where fuel is scarce, that's a genuinely useful capability to know about. 5. Honey. Here's the one that always gets people. Honey does not expire, full stop. It is the only natural food that is literally incapable of spoiling under normal storage conditions. And we're not just talking about honey you buy today lasting a few extra years past the best-by date. We're talking about honey that archaeologists pulled out of 3,000-year-old Egyptian tombs. They tasted it. It was still good. The chemistry behind this is fascinating. Honey is extremely low in moisture, typically around 17% water content. At that level, microorganisms cannot survive. It's also naturally acidic, with a pH between 3.2 and 4.5, which is hostile to bacterial growth. On top of that, bees add an enzyme called glucose oxidase to honey during production. And when honey contacts moisture, that enzyme produces small amounts of hydrogen peroxide. Honey is essentially self-sterilizing. The one enemy of honey is moisture. If water gets into your honey, from humid air, from a wet spoon, from any source, it dilutes it enough that yeast can start fermenting it. Fermented honey isn't dangerous, but it's not what you stored it for. Keep the lid on, keep water out, and your honey is immortal. If your honey crystallizes or hardens, and most honey will eventually do this, don't panic. That's completely normal, and it doesn't mean it's gone bad. Set the jar in warm water, around 95 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and it'll slowly liquefy again. Never microwave it or boil it directly. because high heat destroys the beneficial enzymes and can degrade some of the flavor compounds. Beyond food, honey has genuine medicinal uses. Raw honey applied to wounds has documented antibacterial properties. It can soothe a sore throat and suppress coughs. In a scenario where conventional medicine isn't accessible, having honey stored is doubly valuable. Salt might be the single most important item on this entire list, and it's also the easiest to overlook because it's so ordinary. Salt is so cheap and so available right now that it doesn't feel like a survival item. That perception is a mistake. Humans cannot survive without sodium. It regulates fluid balance in your body, enables nerve signals to fire, and allows your muscles to contract. You lose sodium constantly through sweat. In a high-stress, high-activity survival situation, you're sweating more than normal. Salt becomes a critical daily requirement. Beyond personal consumption, salt is a preservation tool. Before refrigeration existed, salt was the primary way humans preserved meat and fish. Salt draws moisture out of food through osmosis, creating an environment where bacteria cannot grow. This is how you make jerky, salt fish, salt pork, and a dozen other preserved foods. Knowing how to use salt as a preservation tool is a legitimate survival skill. Salt also has medical applications. Saline solution, just salt dissolved in clean water at the right concentration, can be used to clean wounds, rinse eyes, and serve as a nasal rinse for congestion. It's not a replacement for actual medical care, but in a scenario where that care isn't available, it's better than nothing. Iodized salt versus non-iodized. Both last indefinitely, but iodine does degrade over time. The iodine in iodized salt may lose potency after a few years. For long-term storage, you might want to stock non-iodized salt and get your iodine from other food sources like seaweed or canned fish. Or just stock both. As for quantity, don't think in terms of small containers. Think in terms of 25 to 50-pound bags. Salt is that cheap and that important. Buy a lot of it. Store it dry. That's it. 7. Maple syrup. Real maple syrup. And we mean the actual thing tapped from maple trees, not the pancake syrup blend sitting on most grocery store shelves. Has an impressive shelf life when handled correctly. The high sugar content does essentially the same thing it does in honey. It creates an environment where bacteria and mold struggle to survive. There's a catch though. Unlike honey, real maple syrup can develop mold on its surface over time, especially once it's been opened. Before you throw it out, know this: you can save it. Skim the mold layer off the top. Then bring the syrup to a boil. Skim any additional surface impurities and let it cool. Sealed properly again, it's still good. Unopened pure maple syrup stored in a cool, dark place will last for years. If you keep it in the freezer, it lasts indefinitely. And syrup doesn't freeze solid because of the sugar content, so it'll still pour when you need it. The store-bought stuff with corn syrup and artificial flavoring is a different animal. That'll expire in the more conventional sense. If you're stocking for long-term storage, you want the pure product. Look for grade A or grade B pure maple syrup. Grade B has a stronger flavor and slightly higher mineral content. It's actually better for long-term nutrient value. 8. Hard liquor. This one gets some raised eyebrows, but it's completely legitimate. High-proof distilled spirits. Anything 80 proof or higher, meaning 40% alcohol by volume or above, will last indefinitely. The alcohol content prevents any biological activity from occurring in the bottle. Nothing can grow. Nothing can degrade. Whiskey, bourbon, rum, vodka, tequila, gin, all of them fall into this category. An opened bottle of hard liquor will last indefinitely as well. Though very slowly over years, some flavor compounds will oxidize if the bottle is less than half full and exposed to air frequently. But safety-wise, it's fine essentially forever. Now here's the part that matters for survival. Alcohol is not just for drinking. High-proof spirits, particularly vodka, which is relatively flavorless, are useful as a disinfectant for wounds and surfaces. In an emergency medical situation, that's significant. Alcohol can also be used as a fire starter, a solvent for cleaning, and a trade commodity in post-collapse scenarios. Historically, alcohol has functioned as currency in barter economies. The hard rule on this: watch out for anything labeled as cream-based or with dairy content. Bailey's Irish Cream, bourbon cream liqueurs, anything that says refrigerate after opening. These are not indefinite storage items. The dairy component will expire. Stick to straight spirits. Flavored liquors are also worth being careful about. Many of them have lower alcohol content or added sugars that can behave differently over time. When in doubt, go with unflavored, high-proof, straight spirits. 9. Pure vanilla extract. Pure vanilla extract is on this list for the same reason hard liquor is. It's primarily alcohol. The FDA requires pure vanilla extract to contain at least 35% alcohol by volume, and most commercial versions are higher than that. That alcohol content makes it shelf-stable indefinitely. This is in sharp contrast to imitation vanilla flavoring, which contains no alcohol and has a much shorter shelf life. The imitation stuff will degrade over time. Pure extract, sealed and stored in a dark cabinet, just gets better. The vanilla flavor actually mellows and deepens over years. Making your own is straightforward and economical at scale. Take vodka or rum at around 80 proof. Add vanilla beans. The general ratio is about 5 or 6 beans per cup of alcohol. Seal the jar, put it in a dark place, and let it sit for at least 8 weeks before using. The longer it sits, the stronger the flavor. You can keep adding beans or alcohol over time to keep it going indefinitely. This is a living extract. For storage, keep it out of direct sunlight. Light degrades vanilla compounds faster than anything else. A dark cabinet or a sealed opaque bottle is ideal. Beyond that, no special treatment needed. 10. Vinegar. Vinegar is already a product of fermentation and chemical transformation. It's essentially acetic acid diluted in water, and acetic acid is inherently antimicrobial. Nothing is going to make vinegar go bad because the conditions that would promote spoilage are already eliminated by vinegar's own chemistry. White distilled vinegar, apple cider vinegar, red wine vinegar, rice vinegar, all of them last indefinitely. They might develop some visual changes over time, like slight cloudiness or sediment, but that's purely cosmetic. The acidity remains intact and it's still safe and effective. The practical reason to stockpile vinegar goes beyond just cooking. Vinegar is a legitimate cleaning agent and natural disinfectant. It descales mineral buildup from surfaces and equipment. It can be used in food preservation. Pickling vegetables in vinegar brine is one of the oldest preservation methods humans have used. If you're preserving a garden harvest for long-term use, vinegar is essential. Store it in its original container, sealed, in a cool, dark place. The acidity of vinegar can interact with metal over time, so make sure containers are glass or plastic. Original manufacturer containers are designed with this in mind. Don't transfer it to metal containers. Apple cider vinegar also has a wide range of documented health applications: digestive health, blood sugar management, skin care. In a scenario with limited access to healthcare, that versatility matters. 11. Powdered milk. Fresh dairy is one of the first things that disappears in any supply chain disruption. Milk has a week, maybe 2, before it's completely unusable. That's why powdered milk deserves a serious spot in your long-term storage. The USDA has stated that commercially packaged powdered milk stored in original sealed containers lasts indefinitely. That's a government agency saying it, not just survival bloggers. The key variables are oxygen, moisture, and light. Eliminate those and the milk powder just sits there perfectly preserved. Whole milk powder has a shorter shelf life than non-fat dry milk because of the fat content. Fats go rancid over time. For absolute longest storage, non-fat dry milk in nitrogen-flushed sealed cans is the gold standard. Non-fat dry milk stored this way has been tested at over 20 years with no significant quality degradation. Once you open a container of powdered milk, the clock starts. Exposure to air and humidity begins the degradation process. At that point, you're looking at roughly 3 months of quality storage in a sealed secondary container kept in a cool, dry place. Plan your usage accordingly. Open one container at a time and use it before opening the next. Beyond drinking, powdered milk serves all the same culinary functions as fresh milk. Baking, sauces, soups, oatmeal, coffee, anywhere you'd use liquid milk, you can reconstitute powder and use it the same way. 12. Cornstarch. Cornstarch is a pantry item most people don't think about for emergency prep, but it's genuinely useful and it stores indefinitely. Kept in a cool, dry, dark environment in its original airtight container, cornstarch will last as long as you need it to. The science is simple. It's a dry starch with no fat, no protein, and minimal moisture. There's nothing in it that can degrade or be attacked by microorganisms. The practical value of cornstarch in a survival cooking scenario is as a thickener. Soups, stews, gravies, sauces. Cornstarch lets you stretch ingredients further and make meals more substantial. When you're working with limited supplies and need to make a thin broth feel like an actual meal, thickening agents become surprisingly important. Cornstarch also has non-food uses worth knowing about. It can soothe skin irritation and rashes. It functions as a dry shampoo when water is scarce. It can reduce friction and chafing, which is relevant if you're walking long distances without normal hygiene options. It's a surprisingly versatile item to have in quantity. 13. Canned vegetables. Canned vegetables operate on the same principles as canned meat. The canning process sterilizes the contents. The sealed environment prevents any new contamination, and as long as that seal stays intact, the contents are preserved. Corn, peas, carrots, green beans, tomatoes, beets, all of them can sit on a shelf for years and remain safe to eat. The nutritional content is worth addressing because people often dismiss canned vegetables as nutritionally inferior to fresh. That's partially true. The canning process does reduce some heat-sensitive vitamins like vitamin C, but the minerals, fiber, protein, and many other nutrients remain largely intact. In a situation where fresh vegetables aren't available, canned vegetables are dramatically better than no vegetables at all. Variety in your canned vegetable selection matters for two reasons. First, nutritional coverage. Different vegetables have different nutrient profiles, and eating a variety ensures you're getting broader coverage. Second, flavor fatigue. Eating the same thing every day in a stressful situation takes a real psychological toll. Having different options makes meals more bearable. The inspection rules are the same as for canned meat. Look for physical damage to the seams and lids. Avoid bulging cans without exception. Side dents are generally fine, seam dents are not. When in doubt, throw it out. The calories aren't worth the risk of botulism. 14. Dry pasta. Dry pasta is an excellent long-term storage food because of what it doesn't contain: moisture, fat, and anything biologically interesting enough to go bad. It's essentially just dried flour shaped into different forms. Kept away from moisture and pests, it lasts essentially forever. The enemy of stored pasta is moisture, which leads to mold and pests. Mice genuinely do target pasta. Something about it attracts rodents more than you'd expect. This means your pasta storage needs to be both airtight and physically sturdy enough that a rodent can't chew through it. Mylar bags work for the moisture and oxygen side, but you still need a hard outer container like a sealed plastic bucket to protect against pests. Oxygen absorbers make a meaningful difference here. Pasta stored in sealed Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers will outlast pasta stored in even a good airtight container without them. The removal of oxygen also eliminates any insect eggs that might hatch over time. For nutritional density, whole wheat pasta is better than regular white pasta in terms of fiber and micronutrients. The trade-off is shelf life. The higher oil content from the wheat germ means whole wheat pasta goes rancid faster, typically within 1 to 2 years. For true long-term storage, white pasta is the practical choice. Pasta pairs with nearly everything in your stockpile. Canned meat, canned vegetables, olive oil, dried herbs, canned tomatoes. It's one of the most flexible cooking ingredients you can store. 15. Coffee and tea. Let's talk about morale. People underestimate this in survival planning. Physical survival is one thing, but psychological survival matters too. Maintaining some sense of normalcy, rituals, comfort, familiar things, makes a brutal situation more bearable. Coffee and tea are two of the most powerful morale items you can stockpile, and both store extremely well. Coffee needs to be kept dry, dark, and completely oxygen-free for maximum shelf life. Whole beans last longer than ground coffee, because grinding dramatically increases the surface area exposed to oxidation. But in long-term storage terms, both ground coffee and whole beans stored in sealed Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers can last 5 to 25 years, depending on conditions. Instant coffee, while genuinely inferior in flavor to properly brewed coffee, is worth including because of its practicality. It requires nothing except hot water. No filter, no equipment, no grinding. The freeze-dried varieties are the best quality. Stored in its original sealed container in a cool, dark place, instant coffee can last 20 or more years. Tea is even easier. Loose-leaf tea in sealed containers lasts longer than tea bags because the tea bags have more exposed surface area. But both last several years minimum, and in oxygen-free sealed storage, loose-leaf tea can last a decade or more without significant flavor loss. For variety and medicinal value, stock a range: green tea, black tea, herbal blends for health purposes. 16. Soy sauce. Soy sauce is one of those condiments that makes everything more edible. It adds depth, saltiness, and umami, that savory richness that makes food satisfying in a way that plain salt alone doesn't quite achieve. And it lasts essentially forever. The reasons are straightforward. Soy sauce is extremely high in sodium, making it a hostile environment for bacterial growth. It's also produced through fermentation, so it's already the product of a controlled microbial process. It has a naturally low pH and very low water activity. None of the biological processes that cause food spoilage can get a foothold in it. Store it in a cool, dark cabinet. An open bottle will keep for years, though the flavor is best in the first year after opening. An unopened bottle stored correctly can last indefinitely. Soy sauce also has a wide range of cooking applications beyond Asian cuisine. It works as a seasoning in marinades, stews, soups, and sauces of any style. Tamari, which is wheat-free soy sauce, stores and lasts the same way. If you're stocking for people with gluten sensitivity, that's worth noting. 17. Ghee. Ghee, clarified butter, solves the fundamental problem with regular butter, which is that butter's water content and milk solids make it go rancid relatively quickly at room temperature. When you remove those components through the clarification process, what's left is essentially pure butter fat, and pure fat is dramatically more shelf-stable. Commercially packaged ghee, unopened and stored in a cool, dark place, can last a year or more at room temperature. In the refrigerator, it lasts indefinitely. And unlike regular butter, ghee doesn't need refrigeration at all if kept away from heat sources and moisture, both of which will cause it to degrade faster. Making ghee yourself from butter is simple. Melt unsalted butter slowly over low heat. The milk solids will sink or float, and the water will evaporate. Skim the foam off the top, then strain the liquid through a fine mesh or cheesecloth, leaving the solids behind. What you pour off is ghee. Let it cool and seal it in a glass jar. Done. For storage, keep it away from your stove. Heat accelerates rancidity in any fat. Keep moisture out entirely. Water introduced into ghee will shorten its life significantly. A sealed glass jar in a cool cabinet is the ideal setup. Ghee has a high smoke point, which makes it excellent for high-heat cooking, frying, searing, sautéing. In a survival cooking scenario over a camp stove or open fire, that matters. 18. Spices and seasonings. Here's a psychological reality of long-term food storage. The food will get boring. It'll get boring faster than you think. Plain white rice, plain canned beans, plain pasta. These things are completely edible and nutritionally adequate. But eating them day after day without any flavor variety does something to your mental state. People give up on survival situations partly because eating becomes joyless. Spices are the solution. Cumin, garlic powder, chili powder, oregano, cinnamon, paprika, turmeric, ginger, black pepper. Build a comprehensive spice collection, and you can turn the same basic ingredients into 50 different meals that taste meaningfully different. Spices don't go bad in the safety sense. Dried spices won't make you sick after a few years. What degrades over time is potency. The volatile compounds that carry flavor and aroma slowly evaporate. After 3 to 5 years, your spices will still be edible, just less flavorful. The solution is to use more of them, which is fine. For true long-term storage, buy spices in larger quantities and immediately seal the bulk into mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Keep just a small working supply in your kitchen jars. The sealed bulk supply will maintain potency dramatically longer than a jar that gets opened repeatedly. Whole spices last longer than ground. Whole peppercorns outlast ground pepper significantly. Whole cumin seeds outlast ground cumin. If you have a mortar and pestle or a small hand grinder, buying whole spices for long-term storage and grinding them as needed is the highest